Welcome back to the DRN podcast. My name is Dustin. I am your host, and today I have a guest co-host by Haven.
Hello, guys.
Thank you for joining me today. And our discussion today is going to be all about men's mental health, the stigmas behind it, how work and relationships and all that can kind of get involved with poor mental health and how it can also be effective for making it even better. So let's just jump right into it. And the first thing I want to talk about is relationships. That's probably the biggest one, at least for me. I think probably for you as well.
Yep.
So why don't you tell me about your history with poor mental health and how relationships have affected it?
So I can definitely tell you a bit about my mental health. I went through some very physical and mental abusive relationships. One especially with my son's mother. She was probably the worst one out of all of them. She would sit there and try to play victim every time. And when it comes to playing victim, a lot of the time when people accuse someone of something, they like to sit there and play the blame game. I went through a lot of physical and mental abuse with her. There was lots of times where she would try to guilt trip me into blaming myself for something that I did not cause. There was a lot of stuff that was going on, especially around her 2-year-old at the time, before my son was even born. Mental health is one of the most very serious things in our world's generation nowadays. We have men that are sitting here, depressed, going into work, not wanting to work, wanting to stay in bed all day. There's a whole lot of things that comes with it.
I agree. And if nobody really knows, statistics-wise specifies that men are 3 times more likely to commit suicide. And most of that is due to the stigma in the world and society itself, especially when it comes to asking for help. A lot of times there's a bad stigma about, hey, you're a man, you gotta buck up, you gotta be a man, quotation. And it affects because sometimes when you want to ask for help, people say that you're weak. But for women's side, they can always get help. I guess society must think that women are weak and men are supposed to be strong. But, poor mental health can really damage somebody. I know for myself, too, I've been through some relationships, especially after my ex-wife walked out, and I became suicidal even more than I was already. And yeah, it didn't do well for me. And there's a lot of other things that's caused on there too with other relationships as well. But I do know work environments can also affect it as well, depending on what style of work you do, how toxic that environment is. That can also play a role in poor mental health, especially with a burnout rate too, that doesn't help that mental health. What can you say about your experience in having jobs and having a poor work environment that doesn't help your mental health?
So really, it all really just depends on the work environment. I've worked for a couple of jobs too where the environment was super toxic. I did work for a hotel where I felt like it was high school drama. I was motivated at first to work there. And then, once you step in and you see the toxic work environment, the way that the bosses favoritize their employees, the way that employees treat other people, the rumors that go around, that kind of starts messing with you, and you sit there and you're like, is this job really worth it? Is it, really worth my mental health to even be here right now? Because I went into work at this hotel and I was depressed. Every single day I walked in, I had no motivation to walk in. There was times my legs tried to refuse to go in. And that's just because the work environment, the rumors that get spread, and it was high school. It felt like I was in high school all over again.
Yeah, I know the work environment is pretty poor in a lot of places. I worked for a company as well as the DSP, which I'm working now, but a different company. But the company previously that I worked for as a direct support professional, it was it was poor management. And staff wasn't the greatest either. I mean, there was obviously select few that were good, but yeah, it was the rumor mill. It was constant people making it really hard, no teamwork, and it really didn't help my mental health. And it came after 4 years, I just stopped, and I quit, and I had to find something different. And I didn't feel as home because I wasn't doing what I really wanted to do, but it gave me some relief and gave me some motivation to go back to being what I wanted to be. So with that being said, how about society itself? I know, like I've mentioned previously, that society expects men, at least here in America wise, to act and be a certain way and have this strength beyond belief, like a god or whatever, just to be a man. And sometimes there's a stigma about asking for help. What is your idea about that?
So, from my personal experiences, anytime a man shouts out for help, and this is where it really, hits home, is a man can simply sit here and ask someone, I'm having some mental issues, I need help, I need someone to talk to. They'll look at you straight in the face and they will tell you, suck it up, you're a man. They're trying to teach you that men don't cry. Men aren't allowed to feel these emotions that, us men feel on a daily basis. And it's a struggle, especially when it comes to, new relationships, because the woman always wonders why the man's not talking about his emotions. And it's because the society we live in is, a man is not allowed to talk about how he feels because, and a lot of men can relate, a lot of men feel like in society, no one cares. And that's, really the sad part of our society we live in is we feel like no one cares, no one, wants to hear about our mental health. And that's what really hits home for a lot of men out there.
I agree. And the same thing goes with hospitals too and doctors. I am 35 and it took until just this year to get some actual help and to find a doctor that truly cares to the point where they're not shoving any random medication down my throat. In fact, she was hesitant of giving me anything before I spoke with somebody else from telehealth because she was afraid that they would cause me a manic episode. And, we spoke through everything to where she actually helped. And, that gives me a little bit of faith in humanity a little bit because someone actually cared enough about my mental health that didn't want me to backtrack from where I was right at that moment, from everything that I've done for myself, to having a medication that needs to help me that might cause more issues, So, there's a little bit of change, but there's not enough focus on it. And I've noticed that a lot. For women, they always seem to find the help they need. I don't know what it is in society that creates such a stigma. I know the man is supposed to be considered the leader and the house provider and all, but we can't do everything on our own. Can't do everything on our own at all. Especially in this society, So laying everything on one person is very hurtful, very hard, very difficult, but it's no different for a woman too, like they lay, hey, you're the one that can give birth. You got to be the mom. You got to do this. You got to do that. So, there's a stigma for that as well. Things are changing slowly, but one of the things in society that I really wish would fully change is the stigma about mental health and how they're perceived. Because someone has bipolar, all of a sudden they're crazy. Someone has any kind of mental health, they are looked at as they're crazy. You know how many times I've been told that I'm crazy because I have severe anxiety or PTSD? Oh, let's not forget that if you have PTSD, the first thing that anyone ever thinks of is, oh, you served in the military? No. It's not just the military that causes PTSD. How about child abuse? How about rape for women too? There's all sorts of things that can cause these mental health issues, and it's not always one thing. But you, as a man, say you have PTSD, first thing that everyone thinks and says is, oh, you served in the military. You tell them no, and they're like, oh, how do you have PTSD? That's not possible. Bro, anything's possible, especially with mental health. Heck, you're even born with bipolar. Sometimes it'll show right away, sometimes it won't show at all until way later in life. And on top of that, doctors, back in the 90s when my mother told them that I had bipolar, they didn't believe it. They're like, no, it's just ADHD, and we can't diagnose anyone before they're 18 years old, which I think is kind of stupid. I mean, I can kind of see an understanding of it in a little sense, but come on, you got to be more in tune with how things are going. And yeah, I got diagnosed back in 2017. Then that's years and years later after I've nearly killed myself and, had all these manic episodes and couldn't understand what the hell was going on. So, but what about suicide attempts? Have you ever been suicidal? Have you ever gone to a hospital for it or anything like that, like I have?
So yeah, actually, I attempted to take my life 4 different times. The first time I tried to take my life was due to a lot of bullying in school. Which, my mother ended up signing me up for boxing because I was getting beat up every day, being shoved against lockers. So she wanted to teach me a way to defend myself. The first time that I've tried to commit suicide, I had a knife to my throat in the bathroom and my mom walked in. I want to say the second time, and this is where my depression and my mental health got a whole lot worse, is after she died. When she died, that took a whole torn out of my world because my mom, growing up, was my best friend. She knew everything about me. I knew everything about her. When I lost her, I tried to commit suicide 3 different times. One by trying to hang myself, another one with a gun, and another one by just sitting on a bridge. All 3 times, I had a really good friends back then. I still do, and his name was Dante, and he always talked me out of it. And he told me that there's more to life than, just giving up, and this is something your mom wouldn't want for you. Luckily, there was still one person in the world that actually cared about my mental health. Anytime I tried to talk to someone about my mom's death, my dad brushed me away and told me that I need to quit dwelling on the past. It's not dwelling, I'm trying to figure out my emotions from my best friend being torn from the world. And I didn't start having all these, mental issues all the way till really after she died. That's when my bipolar started coming in, and I was diagnosed at 17. I was diagnosed with severe depression, ADHD, and I do have anxiety, especially when I'm sleeping, because I'll start having flashbacks of the past. And that's, something I can't control.
Well, I'm sorry about your mother. I can understand. Well, let me rephrase that. I can sympathize with it because my mother is my rock. And if something were to happen to her, I don't know how I'm going to be because she is the reason I'm actually still alive. When I went through childhood abuse, my stepfather, was doing some things. And my mother called from work, and there was no response. So she had to leave work, and she came home, and that's when she found what was going on. And she took a machete and chased his ass out, cutting everything in the house, she was going to kill him. Rightfully so, too. You don't abuse someone's child. So, but that's where my PTSD came from right there, was the child abuse. So my mother always being there. She's been there my entire life. She is my best friend as well. I don't know how I'm going to be, so I definitely need my friends when that time is to come. But you were also mentioning about having friends around. You know, I have found some very good friends throughout my years, and very low amount. But, you know, I got very few, but I got the greatest of friends, because no matter what happens, they're always there. I know my very best friend, Theo. He may be on far away, you know, across the country, but, you know, every time when I'm breaking down, he's the first one there. And, you know, if you don't have somebody that's there to help, it's really difficult. Now, you mentioned about the suicide attempts. Now, did you actually stay in a hospital for any of them? And if you did, what was the experience like? Were the doctors nice? Did they just try to shove medicine down your throat just to get you out of there? Or what was your experience in the hospital?
So the second time that I tried it, I was under a 24-hour house watch, which they constantly had to take every sharp object out of the house, anything that you could use to basically end your life. They even had to escort you to the bathroom to make sure you weren't doing anything, which, you know, it felt really, really weird. The third time that I did try, I was put into a mental hospital, and the doctors did not care. They cared more about shoving medicines down your throat to make your depression a whole lot worse. So I ended up, you know, begging my dad to sign me out, which he did, because they had me on so much medication, it looked like I haven't slept in days. And you know, that's where some of my trauma comes to with, you know, doctors, is because I had doctors basically my whole life trying to shove medicine down my throat, and that's not what I want. What I want is for a doctor to actually care. And finding a doctor that actually care is very, very rare. So I was put into a mental hospital, signed out. And I think the fourth time, that's when I was staying with my friend for a little while, because he wanted to make sure that nothing else happened. So he was the one to physically be there for my mental health checkup every morning when I woke up. Hey, how are you feeling today? On a scale 1 to 10. And he drew, like, you know, smiley faces. You know, the sad face meant I'm not doing so okay. The super happy face was, you know, I'm feeling great today. So he was doing charts of how I was feeling each day. And that's how he kept track of my mental health. I lived with him for about a year. And, you know, I was finally in acceptance that, hey, I'm okay. You know, life's going to get rough, but I can't give up.
See, for me, I stayed in 2 different hospitals. One was in Sayre, Pennsylvania, and it wasn't great. And well, the thing is that night I was drunk. I went to a party, and at this point I wasn't on medication, and all the flashbacks from my ex-wife leaving to my abuse and everything came and hit me at once, and I punched a window out and cut my hand all up, and then I ended up calling the cops on myself. So they came, put handcuffs on me, and drove me all the way down there to Pennsylvania. And I can't say it was really that good of an experience. It was more like I was just visiting someone's house. That's what it made me feel. No one made me feel welcome. The doctors didn't really seem to care. It's kind of like, oh, hey, you're a new one? Cool. Okay. Talk to you later. That's kind of like how it felt. The second time that I went to a place was in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm not going to say exactly what happened, but something happened that reminded me of the past. And I was already drunk too at this time. And I walked down until I found a bridge and I was standing on it. And I guess I called on myself from what they said. I don't remember it though, because I was so blacked out from going manic. And I guess the cops tackled me off the bridge and took me to this place in Jacksonville that was literally a psych ward, pretty much. I stayed there for about like 4 days, and then they let me out because I was acting normal. But it's really easy. That's another thing. Is someone that's struggling, they can act normal and be absolutely dying on the inside, and that's what most people don't understand. Just because someone smiles doesn't mean they're happy. Someone will smile though, they don't have to burden you with their emotions, and that's kind of how society has gone, unfortunately. So I think we hit every bit of topic. Is there anything extra you'd like to say about anything about this?
The only thing I can advise, before we end the broadcast here is for the men out there, just know that your mental health does matter. Maybe not to everyone in society, but you need to find that one person that's going to listen and who's going to hear you out and be there. Because that one person is going to make a complete change of that impact on your life. And when you find that one person, which I know for me is I have a good couple people that I can go to about my mental health, and one of them being my fiance, the other being my best friend, you're going to find that one person to listen to you and care about your mental health and try to help you through it. No matter if it's your bipolar, your depression, your anxiety, you're going to have that one person that's going to help you all through it. And when that time comes, you're going to see the major change in your life.
Agreed. And a support group is definitely a necessity. With that being said, if you feel suicidal at all, make sure you call the suicidal hotline. You are not judged for how you're thinking or how you're feeling. Get the help you need, because trust me, at 35 years old, waiting this long and luckily being fortunate enough to live this long, I feel absolutely wonderful. I feel great and I feel alive. I feel happy for once in my life. And trust me, you can ask for help and you can have help. So with that being said, thank you for joining me for this podcast episode, and I hope you join me on the next one. Y'all have a great week.